What's up, everybody? Hope you all had a great weekend. Welcome to a Monday edition of Morning Cup of Hockey presented by Bet365. That's Colby Cohen. I'm Jonny Lazarus. And we got a lot to catch up on from over the weekend. We got our friend Pat Maroon joining the show off of a pretty tough road trip for the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm sure we'll get into what's going on and the frustrations over there for Chicago. Colby, you were on the road this weekend coaching your North American team up in Rochester. I was here this weekend. Vic was crying online all weekend about the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it was a busy weekend for the three of us. But where do you want to begin today? How you feeling?
Do you know what's kind of wild? And I don't know how I just stumbled upon this as I was just kind of looking around at some stuff this morning. Do you know that Connor Bedard is a minus 77 in his career? And
I did not know that, no.
My question is, and it's actually for the chat, and I'm going to challenge everybody to go find, look at guys who had really, really good careers, because I do expect Bedard to have a really good career.
Mm-hmm.
But has a guy ever started a minus? I mean, you got to think by the end of the season, he's probably going to be like a minus 80 something. Is that recoverable in your career? Like, do you ever get to plus for the rest of your career if you start minus 80 or minus 90 potentially or something in the first 2 years of your career?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm actually, my first instinct was Nathan McKinnon, just looking up his first few years.
I went right to Kaner because, they were bad when he first got there.
Yeah.
But he was only a -5 and a -2 his first two seasons, and then he was a plus almost every year until 17-18, where he was the -20. The last couple of years have been rough, so he's a career +3. But what's McKinnon? Where did he start?
Well, McKinnon was actually +20 his rookie year, but then was -7, -4, -14 the next 3 years after that. But then he's been plus ever since. So
I'm not even like, listen, I don't watch the Blackhawks that much because they're not entertaining to watch, and other than like, if we know, our guy is telling us he's going to do something big, which he does at times, but -77, like, do you ever recover from that in your career? Didn't you tell me we might have Mike Commodore on this week?
Yeah, he's supposed to come on Wednesday.
And he's the one who always puts the Masters leaderboards for the gold jacket. Like, he does that little skit. He might be the guy.
JLG in the chat, Jack Eichel -65 to start his career. What's he at right now?
Good one. Thank you. This is why I asked the chat, because I there's gotta be other guys that have started this deep in the hole, like superstars on bad teams. And are they able to get in front of that? And Vic is reminding me here. I guess my microphone is not connected.
You sound good.
There you go. That should be better.
Yeah.
And wow. So Eichel is still a -10 in his career, though.
Wow. Still recovering. Yeah, that's a good call by you.
He's a +26 this year. 2023 was also a +26. Last year was a +4. So yeah, he's still recovering, but he does look like he will recover from that. But yeah, he was a -16, a -13, a -25, and a -11 to start his career, Eichel.
Wow.
And meanwhile, he's become arguably the best 200-foot center in the National Hockey League. I'm not saying he is. I'm saying arguably he is.
Yeah. I wonder who has like the best plus-minus of all time. I think I saw Zdeno Chara was like a +335 or something in his career.
Neil Simmons in the chat is saying Chara started as a -8, then 2 back-to-back years of -27. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's I just stumbled upon this. This wasn't even a Bedard. I don't even mean this. It's almost like, I was like, wow.
It was an accident.
Yeah, -77. That's rough. But like, I think he'll, like, if Jack Eichel made a push later in his career, hopefully Bedard could do the same thing.
The kid's 19 years old. Like, what are we doing here? Come on. But we got Pat waiting for us.
Wait, hold on. What does that mean? Sorry, what does that mean?
He's not the player he's going to be in 5 years. Isn't the player he is now?
But what is I don't.
No, I'm saying we're gonna talk about him being a career minus player when in his second
No,
year in the league.
I asked a question. I said,
Yeah.
"Wow, that's hard to come back from."
Yeah.
That's all I said. And then I asked the chat, "Can the chat find us some other players that started that deep in the hole?" And then you're like, "He's 19. What are we doing here?" Well, what do you like? I don't.
I think you're taking me out of context here. I think you're making this into
Okay.
something that it's not. But let's move in because we got Pat actually ready here to join the show. So let's bring Pat on. Before we do, I want to give a quick word from our sponsor, Proraso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Proraso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps, Hockey15. And Patty, how you doing? Obviously a long weekend for you guys. I know you got back at like 6 a.m. So how you feeling this morning?
Happy St. Patty's Day, boys.
Happy
Oh,
St.
man.
Patty's Day.
It's been a long one. Yeah, we got back at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. Got a little bit of rest, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little tired today.
Mhm. And the weekend itself, obviously you guys got a lot of attention, the past couple games, and I know you weren't playing. What's going on right now? Just take us kind of through your mind of these past few games and where you're at right now.
I'm in the stands right now. But I don't know. I mean, obviously it's been tough. We had a good stretch there. We went, I think it was 3-0-2. We were playing good hockey, and we kind of slid a little bit. We're 0-3 in the last, 3 games. So, yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of attention. Obviously, I'm sure you're talking about Bedsy's 10 minutes.
We actually didn't. We
We didn't
weren't
get there
talking
yet.
about that.
Yeah.
We were doing pre-show stuff, and I don't know how I stumbled upon it because I think I just wanted to see how many goals he was up to this year, and we went on a tangent because I was like, wow, minus 77 to start your career. Like I asked Johnny, do you think he could ever recover from that? Because Johnny's telling me we're having Mike Commodore on this week, and he does the whole minus, the master skit on social media. And then we just went on a tangent. We have not addressed the 10-minute misconducts.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a stupid stat to me.
Well,
I mean,
for what it's worth,
obviously,
Pat, Neil in the chat informed us that you're +9 for your career. So maybe it's a good stat.
I've taken a beating the last 2 years. I think I've been like -10 and -10. But yeah, I mean, it's a stat that's like everyone looks upon as, obviously I don't know. It's a weird stat. Obviously, you don't want to be a minus in your career, but I know you guys were arguing there, like who's the best plus minus. I think Ryan McDonough might be up there.
Yeah,
I don't
probably.
think he's never had a minus season. So if you look up his stats, I think he's like plus 35 this year. I think he might be plus like 260 in his career.
280.
Oh, there
Wow.
you go.
Wow.
34 this year.
Yeah, I
But
don't think he's ever been a minus. But I think I think if we go back and like look at it, and I think when you guys like argue about that stuff, I'm in between like minus players, and like if you start your career like you were talking about with Jack, like a team that's not winning, that's probably like a bubble team, that's probably in the bottom of the standings, like it's going to be tough to get pluses because you're probably going to be out there and listen, like Jack and Connor are playing against the best players when they're 18 and 19 years old every single night,
Yeah.
so it's going to be hard for them to recover, with that. I mean, but I think Colby was saying like now Jack's recovered. Now he's like only like -9 or -10, but I think he'll get there. I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's tough when you're, when you're playing against the top guys every night and your team's not winning. You probably have to score 3 to maybe give up 2, right? I mean, that's
Yeah, and also like a lot of those are probably
if
6-on-5 empty netters.
a lot of those are probably 6-on-5 because you're chasing the game every single night.
Yeah.
And listen, that might be a -2 on just 2 empty net goals, right?
Yeah.
I remember a year I was playing with Corey Perry, and it was in Tampa his last year, and he was out there for every 6-on-5 goal against, and I think he ended up being minus 28. I think his plus rating 5-on-5 was unreal. It was like the 6-on-5 goals he was scored on. I mean, that's just. I mean, it sucks. It's a shitty stat. I mean, everyone looks at it, you're like, Jesus Christ, I don't want to be that guy that's getting the green jacket because you know my Commodore's going to come attack you. But
but Pat, I feel like I agree with everything you're saying, and you know, people in the chat are chiming in here. Like Tommy T says, Pat, the smart kids who understand math and statistics no longer use antiquated plus minus. New York Marine says something similarly. You know, it's bad counting a stat that offers minimal context, but I agree with those guys and I agree with everything you're saying, but there's also something to be said for the fact that a guy like Ryan McDonagh, you know, is never on the ice for even strength goals against, and he's always on the ice when his team is scoring. There is something to be said for that. I do agree that we have so much more information that can be utilized so much better in the context of really scoring chances and goals for and goals against. You know, there's some stats that are ridiculous and players will always roll their eyes at, but there is something to be said for it. I agree it's antiquated. I agree there's not enough context to it, but when you look at Ryan McDonagh and you're like, okay, plus 26, plus 20, plus 23, plus 13, blah, 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 blah. Now you're, oh my God, this guy's 280 for his career. Most players will tell you over the last decade, he's their least favorite player to play against is Ryan McDonagh because of how hard he defends in front of his net, and then his plus minus shows it. I just think that there's still some use for it. I don't think it's a complete dog shit bullshit stat. That's all I'm kind of saying about it. I think your point about Bedard is 100% accurate. It's 100% true. Same goes to Eichel starting his career. But, you know, there are times where you're like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. Like, I'm not surprised Ryan McDonagh's never been a minus in his career.
Yeah, for sure. I think most importantly, too, like there's bad bounces, too. There's bad breaks, like bad changes. You're going to jump on the ice where someone's back checking. It's a 3-on-2. It's in the back of your net, right? Like there's so many things that go into it. I think if you're looking at like those guys like Jack and, you know, Bedsy and, you know, the guys that started their career maybe in the minuses, I think, you know, as long as they're making progress on the ice and, you know, learning to get better every single day and defending and, you know, as long as you're doing the right things to get better each day, you're going to get the odd bounces, like you said. And I think like Johnny said too, like a lot of 6-on-5 goals too against, or I think you said it, Colby, whatever. But so I think he'll get out of it. I mean, shitty. I'm sure he's looking at it like, God, fuck, this sucks. Like,
yeah.
Like I know a lot of guys look at it for sure because they don't want that. But obviously, everyone would rather be a Ryan McDonagh than, you know, minus 200 in their career, which some players are, man. Some players are like a minus 100 in their career. And I think if you look at Patrick Kane too, I think he's in the minuses now because of the last, you know, few years. You know, he was a plus player. So, I mean, it just goes both ways. I think when you're on a team that, you know, maybe is not defending the right way, but what is his? I would love to know.
He's a career +3.
Exactly.
And I got to tell you, you're spot on, Pat, because he had a stretch in his career where it was +15, +11, +15, blah, blah, blah. And then in 2017, he started catching. He had a -20 season, a -23 season, a -19 season. So he's been catching hard minus seasons towards the on the back nine of his career. So, but he's treading above water. And Kaner is a stat fanatic, so he will. I guarantee you, he knows what his plus minus is right now. I guarantee it.
Yeah,
there is.
Okay,
you go.
No, I was just saying, like, there you go. There's your answer. Like, people, you know, like, that just goes to show you, like, in 2017, they weren't winning, right? I'm assuming. So,
right.
That was kind of like the trend of, like, the rebuild and, you know, going through that whole process. So, obviously, it's shitty, but it just goes to show you guys like that, too. Like, they start off good. They're on winning teams, they're in pluses, and then they losing teams, and then everyone kind of takes a beating.
Yeah.
So it's an unfortunate stat that you don't want to have. Obviously, you want to be a plus the end of your career. So I'm sure guys do. Like I said, guys do look at it.
I do want to go into more stuff with the team, but while we're on this, I am curious, and maybe some of our listeners will be curious too. I don't know what it's like in the NHL. I know in college, the morning after every game, each player would look at a statistical packet essentially from the night before that had all the different stats on each of us individually, and we'd look for our own numbers like that. Is there anything similar to that in the NHL? Do you guys walk into the rink the next day after a game and look through stats at all, or is it something that you totally just brush over and move on to the next game? Is that something that any player is interested in?
Stat packs are in the bathroom stalls.
Yeah, they're everywhere. They're in the lounge. They're in the medical room. So I look at the stat pack every day before the game. It's after warmups, I'll go take a look at it just to see it and buzz around it. I like to see certain guys on other teams where they're at.
I'm not talking about I see Adam's comment the media printout, the game
Oh
notes.
yeah,
I'm talking the team's the particular things that your analytics department looks for.
I mean, yeah, you can look at it. They have a online thing where you can register and go log into your account and look at your 5-on-5 chances for, your 5-on-5 chances against, puck possession, all that stuff. You can see all that. Yeah, you can log into it, but I haven't logged into it at all. I'm not an analytics guy. I'm more off feel. I really don't.
Yeah.
That stuff it is what it is. I think you just, there's so much more analytics now in the game that if you keep looking at that, your brain's going to be mush because half the stuff doesn't even make sense. So I think as players, I think you just more look at the print off from the NHL after the game. Your time on ice, how many shifts you got, how many shots, how many hits, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not the guy that's logging into analytics stuff, but I know some guys are. But you can find all that stuff on Twitter now. Everyone's got a print off, or any media guy and any team will print off the analytics
chart
of the chart of offensive time, D zone time, all the stuff they have. So,
Did we lose you? You there?
We lost your sound, Pat. I don't know if you can, maybe you got muted over there at some point here, but it is interesting just to kind of get his take, on this kind of stuff. I think Pat's just got to reboot for a second. He might have got a call or something like that. No, it's all right.
Sorry, I'm in.
Pat, New York Marine asked in the chat, and I think we'll kill the analytics conversation after this question because there are other questions we want to ask, and the chat is asking us to ask you this. But are advanced analytics useful for players? I feel like it's more valuable for coaches for what is causing negatives and positives on the ice. What do you think about that? Do you think many of your teammates are looking too deeply at the advanced analytics?
I don't think so. I don't think a lot of guys are. I could be wrong though. What like he said in that little message there, I think it's more for the coaches and the GMs. I think GMs and coaches probably use it a lot. I think more of analytics like turnovers, breakouts, forecheck, how much time we're spending in our zone, how much time are we spending in the O zone. I think that stuff I would use it if I was a coach, just because you want to see how your team's doing. How you're breaking out the puck. If it's if it's a hard rim, how do we handle those hard rims? Are we bad at recovering hard rims, or breaking out, or soft chips, or how many turnovers we have in every game, stuff like that. So I would take that, and odd man rushes against, odd man rushes for. I would use all that stuff just to nip it in the bud, or show it on clips of why we're not having success or why we are having success. So I would break it down for sure. But I think as players, I think it's more individual and off feel and how you're feeling. I think if you dive deep into all that stuff, I think your mind just goes mush, man. I don't even know like what you'd be reading, to be honest with you. Um, I think if you're feeling good and you're feeling, you know, great about your game, you just kind of keep buzzing. But I think most players love watching video of their line mates or, you know, your line, etc. Kind of just to break down your line and what maybe we can do better offensively or what we're doing wrong defensively or looking at the neutral zone stuff. Why haven't we got on the forecheck or why haven't we got zone entry, stuff like that. I think that's where players go into, you know, bigger stuff is just watching video. I don't think analytics is the place where players are really looking at. I think they're more looking at, you know, live feed of like after games. If we have video, you know, if the coach comes in with the computer, brings our line. And I think that's what we're looking at of what we can create more and what we're doing wrong based off, you know, what the stat pack is telling us. Cause that really is not telling us that much, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Not where we expected to go at all this morning. I didn't think we'd do like a 20-minute analytical conversation. Colby, is there anything else you wanted to say though about it before we kind of move on?
Well, I wanted to ask him some other questions, and you know, I think that you might not want to answer all of them, but you come on our show, we have to ask you, Pat, because I do think
I do think move on from Pat. I meant move on from topics.
Yeah, well, we're gonna switch topics, and I'm gonna start with the first one. Is I'm gonna ask if you have any idea what Connor Bedard said to Chris Rooney for that first 10-minute he got, because look. The video didn't look like he said a whole lot. And I know Chris Rooney a long time. You know, he's obviously a veteran guy in this league. You probably know him just as well. And again, plead the fifth. It's totally an acceptable answer, but we can't have you on here and not ask you the question.
I don't know exactly because I was already when the game was over, I was kind of already not on the bus, but you know, we come in the room, we go in the locker room. If the coach comes in, we kind of sit there. Then we, as players that are not playing, we kind of just get out of there, get out of the way as the players because they're obviously pissed off. So we went straight to the bus. So I haven't really got a fully answer of what happened and what he said. Suppose he was not bad at all.
What I saw was like he just said, "You're the worst ref in the league." That's it. That's like all I saw.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I know he.
That's kind of awesome that he said that. It's kind of funny.
But I think as you don't want, obviously, you don't want a 10-minute. But again, like I don't know. We're down 3-2 with 9 minutes left. I don't know if Rooney was just had a bet like maybe he was frustrated with Bedsy a little bit. Maybe he was chirping him before or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Seemed like he had a hard on for him that night.
Yeah, a little bit. So I think maybe I don't know. I don't know what happened, and I still don't have the answer because, like I said, we went straight to the bus.
Yeah.
So we were looking on the ice, and we were like, "Where's Bedsy go?" And then someone came in. One of the trainers was like, "Oh, he got a 10." We're like, "Oh, for what?" Because we thought he got in a fight. Because because usually we shower. Like with like 11 minutes left to put our suits back on. So I don't know. We missed that part. So I'm assuming he's chirping him right here. I don't know where Rooney's
and for good reason. That should have been a penalty. I mean, that was a trip.
Mario.
That was a trip.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he's 10 minutes. Rooney teed me up when I was on the bench when the play was still going on in Boston. So he gave me a 10-minute misconduct. So that's part. I mean, listen, like it is what it is. I mean, people, you know, some people get frustrated. And I think when you continue to go and go and go, I think refs finally get enough of it. And I'm sure he had enough of it. And if it was something like what Johnny said, like, maybe not, but I'm sure if he just only said that, he want to give him a 10.
Yeah,
I think maybe. I'm sure he said something else, but honestly, if I had the answer, boys, I would tell you I don't. I don't know what he said. Honestly, I really don't. Sorry to break your hearts this morning.
No.
It's okay.
You're just doing your job here, but like with that, Pat, you know, obviously I'm assuming there's conversations that happen with him after those games. And even if you're not in the lineup, did you have a chance to like pull him aside, or do you know if anyone had a chance to talk to him? Like, back-to-back games with 10-minute misconducts, it's obviously something that's rare for a young player.
Yeah, it's obviously rare, but I think that's the last game was just because they got in a scrum.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because now when you punch someone in the face or you grab someone's helmet off or you do all that stuff, I think they're just trying to nip it in the butt now. I think you get a 2-minute or a 10 now, and it was the end of the game in Vancouver, so I could see why they took all four guys. It wasn't just him. It was I think Nazar got the 10 too, and then I think two other guys in Vancouver. So that stuff is fine. He's sticking up for himself. Nazar's coming in helping Bedsy, and so is Reichel. So. But I think the stuff from, the bench stuff, I think you learn from that. You learn from your mistakes, and, you got to gain your respect for refs, and, you want the refs on your side kind of a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially as a young, stud player, up and coming player. So, and I think this all escalated too because of Dickinson's hit.
Yeah.
So I think they put their line out there, 2 minutes left, 6-2. I think, in my opinion, you probably put Fliggy out there, but just the nip stuff in the butt at that time. They're going to take a run at him. Heedle's their best, one of their best players on Vancouver. They just traded for him. He has had problems, and maybe I'm assuming that's why they did that, to go after him. So. It's a game within the game, boys. You guys know that.
Mm-hmm.
Your teammate gets hurt, they're going to go after one of their best players too. So, I'm a fan of that stuff. I don't know. I know it's my team, but if someone gets hit, you got to respond to it. And someone's hurt, it's not going to return to a game. You got to respond to it. And I think that's what they did. And unfortunately, Bet was on the other end of it, and he got another 10. So.
Well, at least he can't collect any minuses when he's got those 10-minute misconducts, so he saves himself a little bit there. Okay, Pat, I got one more for you before I kick it over to Jonny. And again, I know Johnny's not going to ask it, and it sucks to talk about this. And I'll just preface it with the fact that I only played a couple games in the National Hockey League, but I was a healthy scratch probably 40 or 50 times, right? So I'd say 95% of the time that I spent in the NHL that wasn't either training camp and preseason games was spent in a suit on the 9th floor of the Boston Garden. You have found yourself on the outside looking in as of late. And I just want to know, how difficult is that for you at the end of your career? Well, not the end, or at this stage of your career, we'll call it. And the other thing I would ask you to share with people, Pat, because I don't think people quite realize this, is what is it like when you're a healthy scratch? Maybe you can talk about what happens during pregame skate, or maybe if there's the workout before the game, the bike rides, whatever. Maybe it's even changed since I got dragged through it. And also, I was a young player, so I don't know if maybe it's different, the stuff they're giving you to do versus what they gave a 22-year-old, in all those years ago.
Yeah. Obviously you don't want to be scratched. Obviously you want to play and help the guys as much as you can. Unfortunately, I'm on the receiving end of that right now. Obviously it's unfortunate because I want to be in the room. I want to help the guys, and I think I can help the guys down the stretch. I think my opinion is, listen, I have a strong opinion on this, that the NHL is not a development league. If you want to develop your players, you should develop them in the American League. But if you also want to help the guys in the room and have veteran guys have leadership, good leadership in the room, during games where you can help them out and, say things appropriately and say things that need to be said, I think that helps the team a long way. The more veterans you got in the room, the more I think valuable it is for, players that are young, up and coming, players that are going to be longtime players in this league. So, like I said, unfortunately, it's just the receiving end I'm receiving right now that, I'm the odd man out. But that's not going to, dictate who I am as a person or, you know, how I'm going to change my daily basis. You know, like I'm still going to be Pat Maroon every day I walk in the room. I'm still going to have
Yeah.
fun. I'm still going to enjoy it. I'm still going to be there for the guys. It is what it is. I mean, can't really do much about it. But, you know, I'll just, when my time comes, I go out there, you know, just work as hard as I can, help the team win, help the locker room. Because I think down the stretch, like we talked about it, like it's not about, you know, who's developing or who's doing what. Like we need to get wins and losses here. We need to learn. We need to build a culture of winning hockey. And that's the biggest thing I can say on that. You know, you want to help guys win. You want to help them learn how to win every single night. And at this time of year, you're playing teams like that are trying to make a push for the playoffs. Like every team we've played besides Nashville the last few weeks are teams that are fighting and clawing for a playoff spot. So it's a good learning curve for our team to, you know, win games and play against teams that are, you know, in the mix and fighting and crawling and know how hard it is to you know, get in that situation. And you gotta somewhat take that in consideration a little bit. But yeah, I mean, on a daily healthy scratch routine, morning skate, and then you skate with the coaches after, maybe do some goalie drills to start, and then do some skill stuff, and then maybe end with like a little drill that's like a little bag skate, and then go home, and then during the game you work out, and then when I'm at home, I usually, you know, we work out during the game, and then maybe go sit in the sauna for a little bit in between periods, and you know, cold tub, hot tub, and then go watch the game, and then go back in the sauna, you know, in between, you know, the intermission. So on the road, it's a little different. We've been playing a lot of soccer in between periods because we have a lot of guys now. So we have 4 guys, and so we've just been, you know, kind of moseying around doing that, getting out of the room and playing soccer during intermission. So, but yeah, that's pretty much the routine. It's just you come in, you work out when they're doing their warm ups, and then once that's over, you kind of just hang out, watch the game, and then once intermission starts, we go out, play soccer on the road, just kind of, you know, just fuck around a little bit, and then at home is a little different because then we, you know, watch the game and then go sit in the sauna, kind of just mosey around on that way, but yeah, that's pretty much the daily. You know, everything changes though. I used to be like workout after morning skate, but now every team I've been on the last few years, it's workout during the game. So it changes on depending on what, you know, if someone's sick or if someone's, you know, has something tweaked, maybe you do the morning skate and then you don't do the extra after, because everything changes on that end, because you probably are taking warm-ups. So if guys are a little banged up or a little tweaked, that guy might be taking warm-ups just in case he can't go. So he's not doing the extras.
And Pat, I have 2 more questions if you have the time still this morning. I don't know what your schedule is like today, but definitely a couple things I do want to ask on top of that. And Colby could have asked that question without hinting that I'm a bitch, which would have been nice, but we'll call it what it is. But Pat, you know, I want to ask you this because it's been a long time, and you know, when we had that conversation about Bedard and the TNT call out a few weeks ago, like Henrik Lundqvist had something that I thought really stood out and something that you can really relate to about playing meaningful games this time of year. And this is probably the first time in maybe 8 years of your career where this time of year you're not, I don't want to say you're not playing meaningful games, but you're not in a playoff hunt. Has that changed your perspective at all? And I know you're in the scratch house a little bit right now, but has your mentality or your appreciation or any different sort of way you look at the day-to-day in the NHL changed just based on where you are at as a team right now?
Well, no, I think like I touched on it just before. I think your mindset should be winning hockey. Like you got to win hockey games in this league. Like everything's based off win and losses in this league. And I think for me, obviously it sucks because this is my second time ever missing the playoffs.
Wow, that's it?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's unfortunate, but I think when you break down the game and like Hank said, like you want to play meaningful games on the stretch. You want to be in the mix. You want to be there crawling with the boys, and and these teams that are sitting at 68 to 73 to 78 to 73, like, they're crawling, dude. Like, this is playoff hockey for them every night, every single game, and that's fun to me because you're building something. You're trying to find your game. You're trying to get your game in the right spot to get it where it needs to be before the playoffs start. On my end, I look at it like, listen, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to play as hard as I can every single night. I want to play, these are meaningful games for myself and my teammates because we are trying to build something in this locker. We are trying to build something moving forward, and we want to, lean on that as much as possible. You want to continue to have success as a team. And listen, no one wants to be the last place team in the league. So you want to keep winning hockey games. You want to be like, for us, I think we set a goal to try to be over 500, going towards the end of the season. So that was a stretch that we had. So, listen, I think it's tough when you're in these situations. I was only in them once, but I got traded at the deadline to Edmonton, so I knew I was already out of playoffs. So I was just trying to go there and earn a spot, and for next year, and try to find a role where I can fit in Edmonton this year. Obviously, I know where I'm solidified, and I'm just trying to go out there and compete every single night and do as much as I can for my teammates, and help them win. Whatever I get, and that during that game. But I think for a lot of guys in that room, we want to win hockey games. It's still frustrating. We're competitors, and we strive off winning hockey, and we strive off, and we don't do so well losing because everyone's still frustrated. So you can't take that out of us. So I think for us as a mentality right now, we just got to find ways to we had a good stretch there, like I said before the show. But right now we kind of hit a slide, but it's still frustrating losing hockey. It's never fun.
Yeah.
Like, it sucks because no one wants to go in the next morning, do video, and just, we're back to square one again. So I think for us, our mentality is just try to win as many hockey games down the stretches as we can.
Yeah, it's just a lot of, I was only basically on losing teams my entire life, and it was just constant negativity after negativity, and you're finding ways to try to have fun. So I was in the NHL, but I can definitely sympathize with that. And my last one for you, obviously we haven't had you on since trade deadline, and I know you and I were like kind of texting throughout the day, but I want to ask you like your reaction because the video came out yesterday on Behind the B, the Bruins show that they put on YouTube, of Don Sweeney walking in and like telling the entire management team that they just traded Marchand to Florida. And the first reaction, I don't know who it is, but it's just like, Jesus. So I want to know, when you found that out, like 2:59 Eastern time, what your reaction was, and if there was anything maybe that you were hearing on yourself that day.
Yeah, I was talking to Frank, actually. Frank texted me. He's like, are you getting traded? He's like, I heard a few teams, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But he's like, I think Marchand just got traded. And he said Vegas to start, and then the show was going on, and then I turned on the TV, and it was Marchand going to Florida, and I was like, oh, my God. Obviously, it's a shock to me because, like, what you guys brought up Char on the show, and Patrice Bergeron and Marchand, like, what those three guys meant to that organization has been, nothing but respect for those guys, and everyone that comes in that locker room, they have so much respect for those three guys, and they kind of pass the torch on to each guy, right? And I think Bergeron passed the torch on to Marshy, and Marshy, when I walked in that locker room last year, it was one of the best locker rooms I ever walked into. Just the way they compete every day at practice, the way they have fun, the way they handle themselves every single day, the way the respect part for me is what that's really got to me. It's like how much respect they have for players, no matter if you're a fourth line guy or a first line guy or a guy that's in and out of the lineup. To me, that just goes to show you what kind of people they are. And I think that goes a long way. I've been in a locker room where some players don't respect players, and it's not going to help. It's not winning culture. You got to respect all your peers that are in that locker room, and And if you don't, you're going to have a hard time winning hockey. And, you know, they opened up me and my family with open arms. And it's just not from that. It's from like the girlfriends to the wives to, you know, how they handle their situations. And that goes a long way too. You know, you want to, everyone, you know, we all say like the wives have to go in their own locker room too, as much as the players do. So you want to make sure they feel comfortable as much as they can too. And, you know, it's easy for me to walk into a locker room and have 23 new friends, right? You know, because I'm there every single day. They're only there for maybe home games and, you know, they get to know you. But I think the way the Marchands handle themselves every single day, you know, I'm sad that he's gone because I can only see Brad Marchand in the Boston uniform, but I'm happy for him because you know what? At the end of the day, now he gets an opportunity to go kind of, you know, he's at the tail end of his career. I'm sure he's going to probably play maybe 3 or 4 more years, but he has an opportunity here to now go, you know, win a second Stanley Cup. And that's what, you know, as players, we always talk about on the show. It's like, as players, you know, the pinnacle of your career is playing in NHL for a long time. But I think at the end of the day, your end goal is to not play, you know, as many games, because I guarantee you all those guys that have over 1,000 games but no Stanley Cup, they would take half those games to win a Stanley Cup. So I think the most importantly as players, the pinnacle is to make it. But I think that the end goal, the edge, you know, is to etch your name on that Stanley Cup as many times as you can. And he has that opportunity to go there in Florida to, you know, host another Stanley Cup. And you never know. It seems like in those comments that he made in those interviews that, you know, maybe there is an opportunity for him to go back and, you know, be the captain again in Boston. You know, maybe it just didn't work out in their plan as of right now, what they want. So maybe they just probably circled back and like, listen, it's not in the cards right now, but go play in Florida, go try to win a Stanley Cup, and we'll revisit in the summer. So I can see that happening, him going back, but you never know now. I don't know what the hell people are thinking anymore because all these big names are getting traded now. So it doesn't matter where you are. No one's really secured anymore.
Paddy, is it safe to say if he doesn't go back, Charlie McAvoy would be a good option to be the next captain of the Boston Bruins, or, you know, somebody else maybe? I mean, obviously, I think people have said Pasta. I don't, you know, I don't know Pasta like I know Charlie, but I don't know if you think that might be a safe bet.
I would say both of those players are safe bets. Absolutely. I think it's either going to be Pasta or Charlie. But I don't know who's going to be the captain, honestly. But I think those two people are great human beings. And like I said, they learn from the best, you know, Char and Bergeron and those guys. So, like, they know what it takes. And knowing those two, they care so much about that team and that organization that no matter who gets to see, they're going to take pride in that. And they're going to take pride of, like I said before, keeping that locker room you know, in good hands and in good shape. And like I said before, like respecting their peers and respecting everyone that comes in that locker room.
Well, Pat, can you do Vic a favor and just talk about Pasta being captain and Charlie being captain so he can clip it for when they actually name one and we can say that you called it?
Nostradamus. Paddy, we kept you a while today. You're the best, man. We appreciate the fact that you're willing to kind of dig in on some of these topics that, like, who wants to wake up at 8 in the morning and be asked questions about this type of shit? So, listen,
he's got the Hakuna Matata sweatshirt on. It means
we're grateful for it. Not only that, we ask you the questions, and I know you're not mad either. You know what I mean? Like you're a good teammate here, man. And that's not just in the locker room, but that's on our show as well. So we're grateful that you're willing to talk about that stuff. And we hope your better half is feeling good and everything is progressing well on that side of things. And we'll look forward to catching up with you here next week, hopefully, and if not, the week after.
Yeah, sounds good, boys. Go have a green beer for me today.
Yeah. That's
all right, pal. Have a good day.
Thanks, Pat.
See you guys.
Wow, great stuff. Did not think we'd go 45 minutes today. That was awesome. Also, the best Wi-Fi Pat's had, I think, since he's joined our show. That was unbelievable. Where do you want to go from there, Colby? We got a lot that we can really get into just around the NHL. You know, obviously the Leafs right now are going to be a big talking point. For those that didn't see, Vic actually got in front of the camera and gave a little rant the other night. So that was fun to watch. They're 1-4-1 in their last 6. Tough loss against Ottawa. But I kind of want to go there, Colby, because you made a really good point about the Ottawa Senators before we started the show today. And I'm going to hand it over to you and kind of go into that because I thought that was a good talking point here.
Yeah, look, I think, when we started today's show, we talked about how hot the Ottawa Senators have been. And listen, they have been. There's absolutely no doubt. And, one thing that I have said on this show numerous times is when you're a good team, you have to beat the bad teams. You have to beat the non-playoff teams. Like, that's what good teams do. They take care of business. And that's what Ottawa's done. But I was thinking to myself, geez, I wonder if Ottawa's good enough to catch Toronto. You've got Toronto going one way, and you've got Ottawa going in a complete different direction with Ullmark playing the way he has. So then I started to dig in a little bit, and I see, a lot of Ottawa's last stretch, really going back even before the Four Nations break, they've really not had quality wins. And is that something that
what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
I mean wins against playoff teams, right?
Okay, yeah, because you got to be specific there, right?
They've beaten in this 7-0-1 stretch. Their one loss came to Washington. Now it was a shootout, so they get a point. So you give them credit because they go to overtime with Washington. Other than that, they've got a win against Boston, a win against Philly, a win against Detroit, a win against Chicago, a win against San Jose. They do have a win against Toronto, who's not playing well, but it's a win against a good playoff team. The Rangers are currently a playoff team, right? They've put themselves back into the wild card situation, although I'm not ready to sit here and say I think the New York Rangers are a good team because anytime
but that was a huge comeback win, though, too. Down 3-1 in the third. Like, that's a big win for them,
So I'm just saying, and then right before that, after the break, they lost to Winnipeg and they lost to Montreal, right? We know what Winnipeg has been this year, one of the elite teams in the National Hockey League. And, right before break, 2 losses to Tampa, 1 loss to Florida, and a win against Nashville. So, again, I think Ottawa is beating teams that are non-playoff teams, and they're taking care of business, and they're winning right now, which you have to do. But, I didn't look at their schedule for the next couple of weeks. Like, I just wonder, are they going to run into a bunch more playoff teams and will things cool down for them? And that makes me wonder if they can catch Toronto. I think if I remember, they're 4 points behind Toronto, maybe
back.
5. Okay.
4 points back.
So,
but I can tell you their schedule. I have it pulled up right here if you want to know.
Go ahead.
Their next couple games here, they're in Montreal, home against Colorado, in New Jersey, in Buffalo, in Detroit, home. They play Columbus 3 times to end the season. That's the team that they're kind of neck and neck with right now. Maybe they're a little bit ahead in the playoffs, but that's 6 points up for grabs between them and the Blue Jackets, who are going to need those games. Like, those are going to be 3 playoff games. Montreal as well. They've got some pretty good competition, but then they also have like the Blackhawks, the Flyers. They have some games that they should definitely win. Penguins, Sabres.
Right. Yeah. Well, listen, this is the time of year where you can't drop a game to San Jose. You can't drop a game to Florida. To Chicago. But even more important is when you're playing those teams, like you're talking about Columbus, those are 4-point swings, right? Yeah. Those are 2 points you're taking from a team that like can't get 2 points that night that you're neck and neck with. So, those are pretty important games, especially, down the stretch. And here's what I'll say, right? Looking at the standings, most teams have played, I see 66 games. I see a couple of teams with 65. So 65 is the low mark for the most part for teams. This is not updated, I don't think. No, this is the games played column on this is off. Because I'm looking at NHL, like Florida's played 68 games, Toronto 66. There's really nobody left with 65 games in the National Hockey League, except for, I believe I'm looking right now, Buffalo and LA are the only teams with 65 games. So let's just say most teams are at 66 to 68 games. Like you're coming down to basically less than 15 games per team, right? Those are 2 points you're taking from a team that like can't get 2 points that night that you're neck and neck with. So, those are pretty important games, especially, down the stretch. And here's what I'll say, right? Looking at the standings, most teams have played, I see 66 games. I see a couple of teams with 65. So 65 is the low mark for the most part for teams. This is not updated, I don't think. No, this is we're going to find out, right? This is normally when the bubble teams kind of flake out, like we've seen with the Flyers. The Islanders did get a huge win last night, coming back from 0-2. Give the Islanders a lot of credit. Tony D had a couple of points. Noah Dobson with a beautiful goal and a nail in the coffin game winner after the Isles scored 2 quick ones. But, this is when the good teams kind of have to, like John Cooper, we've talked about his quote, first 20 games is a little bit one way, then the next, like it's broken down basically into stretches of 20 games. And it's time, right? Like if the Toronto Maple Leafs go on a skid right now leading into playoffs, I'd expect the Toronto Maple Leafs to go one and done in the first round because they're most likely going to play Tampa, most likely, right? You need to be playing good hockey right now. You need to be better than, 5-4-1. You want to see your team like the Florida Panthers right now that are 7-3, even though they've lost 2 in a row. This is what you want to see. The Carolina Hurricanes quietly have won 7 in a row and are 8-2 in their last 10. We kind of cast them out after they traded Rantanen, and we said, "Oh, this team is kind of floundering right now."
I didn't say that.
A lot of people were kind of.
Oh wait, you're saying Carolina? You're saying Carolina? I thought you meant Colorado. I thought you meant Colorado.
I'm talking about Carolina. I'm talking about Carolina. So,
I did say that.
You did say that exactly.
Yeah.
So
I thought you meant Colorado.
No, Colorado's 8-1-1 in their last 10. I mean, they look as good as anybody right now with that huge win yesterday as well. So, this is the time. This last 10 to 15 games, like we'll find out. Like the gap I think goes like this time of year because the good teams say, okay, no more fucking around. Put your foot on the gas.
Yeah.
And teams like the Flyers have a hard time finding something to play for right now, unfortunately. And that's what you're seeing.
Okay. Can we talk about one other thing? Because can you get Zach's comment up there, Vic? The testicles one. Zach Phillips, obviously with the sheet just said, not a single set of testicles among the highest paid players. It's a damn shame. And I don't want to necessarily like compare this to the Rangers, but I can only help but do it. Like last night, Igor Shesterkin, lets in, some may call it a weak one on Victor Arvidsson, even though it ramps off Zach Jones' stick. And all the comments are like 11.5 million. 11.
Is your jaw okay, by the way, today?
Yeah, I thought that was such a snipe. I was like, holy shit, did Arvidsson really just do that? I know Colby was chirping me behind the scenes, by the way.
Well, because you're so quick to get
dramatic,
on the keyboard.
I know.
You're sensationalizing everything, every shift, and then nobody can take you seriously.
Just you can't take me seriously. I'm amazed at what these guys do on the ice. If you think something's routine, I don't. I think
it was deflected off of Jones.
Listen. I sit in the press box. It looked like it was a fucking snipe. It was.
So take a second to watch a replay.
Well, I get too horny and I like to tweet right away. But that said, with Matthews, with Marner, with all these guys in Toronto, like maybe it is something that is said amongst Leafs fans all the time, but I'm already sick of Igor giving up a goal and seeing fans go 11.5. Like if Matthews misses, a scoring chance, are they just bringing up his contract every time he misses? Like, is that where we're at with fandom? Like guys can't like make a mistake here and there if they make a lot of money. Like it's going to happen. Mistakes happen in these games.
If you're the highest paid player at your position and you went through a whole contract standoff, you better play like the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. You better be at an A-level player.
Sharma, we have a $50 million power play.
Most of the time. It's just like, listen, he makes a good point.
Yeah, it's funny.
If you're going to have 4 of the not highest paid anymore, but if you're going to have a big 4, they better show up, right? They better make sure that they don't leave room for this.
All right, so when Rantanen misses a scoring chance, I'm just going to say 12 million.
Completely different. That's a completely different. Missing a scoring chance. What about Elias Pettersson? The guy doesn't. I know he's been scoring lately, but for the most part, he's been a no-show since he signed his contract. If you're going to sign a massive contract, be ready. Like, it's responsibility to the fan base, to the ownership, to everybody that goes out and supports your team and wears your logo. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you're not going to let a guy off the hook who's the highest paid player at his position. He was vocal about thinking and wanting to be the highest paid player at his position. So he better make saves that other guys don't make.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not disagreeing with the sentiment, but I'm going to compare it to the highest paid players and the guys who want all the money that play forward and don't score a goal from time to time. I think we talked about Matthews once, like, you're paying him that much money, like basically to score every game or do something every game, like you're paying Igor to win every game that he plays.
Put Zach's comment on the chat on the screen here, because Jonny is clearly missing the mark here, as he does so often. It's not about mistakes, Zach said. It's about showing up. Okay, you got to show up. Okay, Rantanen missing but I'm talking about Igor right now, and Igor doesn't mean Igor didn't show up. Elias Pettersson is known for not showing up. Okay, you will never hear people say Mikko Rantanen didn't show up. You will never hear people say Nathan McKinnon didn't show up. Okay, like those guys show up. Okay, it doesn't mean they score every game. It doesn't mean they make mistakes. Mitch Marner has a reputation for the playoffs starting when the paychecks stop and not showing up.
Okay? So were you saying that Igor Shesterkin doesn't show up?
Jonny, I'm not saying I didn't start this conversation
I'm
about
asking,
Igor.
All
I'm saying is as a goaltender, you're going to get paid more than everybody else. You are going to be under the microscope more. And just like your paychecks are bigger, your criticisms will be bigger. It comes with the territory, right?
But I think you're saying it's different, though. Like, if we're talking about just showing up, he still makes the saves that not many other goalies can make. And if one goes in that he probably should have stopped, I'm not going to say this guy's overpaid. Like, I still think Igor Shesterkin battles his ass off and shows up, and there's still no other goalie I want in the playoffs.
Yeah, but he has not played like the best goaltender in the National Hockey League this year. He hasn't.
No, and that's
right.
And that's fair.
But he's not making.
He's not making the money yet.
He's not making the money yet. He hasn't. So he better do it next year. Yeah. And listen, goaltending is a little bit different. Like you're a scorer versus a goaltender, a little bit different, right? It's a little bit easier to say Mitch Marner didn't show up in a playoff series than it is, one bad goal going in versus, so it's I wouldn't say it's necessarily apples to apples, but yeah, I do believe that, when you make that type of money, you deserve to be under the microscope more. Listen, who defends? Do I ever side with anybody but the players ever? But you also have to be fair. You got to be fair.
Yeah, I don't want to see 11.5 for the next 8 years on anything I tweet about Shesterkin. It's just like, it's a little ridiculous, I think.
I also think contract numbers, like, we go through this every time there's like a jump in the salary cap and somebody I remember when Kane got double digits, and then I remember like Matthews got even more, and like, we're going to have to readjust the way we look at money in the NHL. Like, we've kind of been beaten down, like, oh, this league doesn't have any money. There's poor teams. Like, players can't make more than $8 million. Like, your best player, for a while, the best players in the NHL were making $6 million, right? Yeah. Like, so we're going to have to recalibrate our brains for what we look at, for dollars and for dollars and cents type of thing. And how we view player performances based on what they're making, because the money's just going way up. The money is just going way up.
I'm looking at some of the comments in the chat, and Johnny read, like, to me, Igor doesn't deserve more than Hellebuck, and that's always the conversation, right? Because Hellebuck's now going to win back-to-back Vezinas, but what has Hellebuck done for Winnipeg in the playoffs? Like, I know, what is it? You make your name in the playoffs, you make your money in the regular season, but like, it should kind of be the opposite, right? Like, would you rather have the guy that does shit in the playoffs or the guy that just does shit for 82 games?
I mean, listen, I grew up in Philly where Danny Briere was an assassin in the playoffs. Not that he wasn't good during the regular season, but I remember Keith Primo, he'd have good seasons and then they'd get into the playoffs and he would turn into, freaking Wayne Gretzky in the playoffs, how good he would play in the playoffs. Like, there's just some guys that elevate. Mikko Rantanen's one of those guys. He elevates in the playoffs. Yeah. Kel McCarr elevates in the playoffs. Mitch Marner shrinks in the playoffs. Matthews is, I wouldn't say quite on that level, but he certainly doesn't do what Nylander does in the playoffs. So, I think that, it's worthwhile conversation, Johnny. It's you're going to hear it
and to me, it's also like, he's your best player. He should be paid as your best player. I don't care what position he plays. You pay your best player the most money.
Yeah. Listen, I didn't have an issue with Shesterkin's contract at all.
I'm just seeing it so much now, and it's like, it's pissing me off. And I just needed to vent and air it out a little bit on here this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, like you said, we'll see how he plays in the playoffs. Right.
Yeah. If they get there.
If they get there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, will he be what he's been in the playoffs? Because if he is, he's worth every cent, because he gives you a chance to win a Stanley Cup. If you're an 8th seed, you have a chance to win a Stanley Cup with him if he goes to that level in the playoffs.
If the Rangers get in, I will actually put money on them to beat Washington in the first round.
Okay.
I will.
All right. Well,
and speaking of that, actually, before we get into Bet365,
are you going to pay me the $10,000 you owe me for BU beating UMass, or was that just I owed you?
You bet me $10,000.
Oh, well, no, you made the whole thing up. I never bet you shit. I just didn't know. So it wasn't a two-way street. It was only if one won, then I had to pay you. If the other one, nothing happened.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
okay.
I just want to address Alcoholic A 1986 in the chat. Said stop caring about social media. He said, or whoever it is said, stop caring about social media replies. I do care, just like I care about all of your chat replies. Like, you are the people that I interact with every day, so obviously I'm going to care about what you have to say. You guys are the people that listen to my show, that read my tweets, that read my stories. Like, you are the people that support me, and I care about what you have to say, and I will challenge you and talk back to you and take what you have to say into consideration. Otherwise, there is no conversation. So I do look at what people reply to my stuff, because that's who's interacting with me and that's who's talking to me. So yes, I allow it to piss me off, because it should. I'm passionate about this stuff, and I will go back at it. So just wanted to address that. I know people don't read the comments or anything, but that's part of my job, is communicating, I feel like, with the people that read what I say or care what I have to say, because I know you don't care what I have to say, Colby. So I talk to them.
Well, you like to pander to social media. I mean, you just do. Like, come on. You like to say things for reactions, and
not all you think I do, but I don't really. Like, sometimes I know how I can push a button or two, but that's not all I do.
How about now that you're talking about social media, the comments on my tweet this weekend.
Oh, that was so good.
Okay, so the Rempe thing happens in Minnesota. Okay, it must have been on a Thursday night, right? Because you tweeted on Thursday. It was a Thursday night. Yeah. The response that I had, I mean, look, that might have been the worst call I've ever seen in the National Hockey League. Like, Rempe, the worst call I've ever seen in the National Hockey League. So I wrote, and I don't know if any of you saw this, Vic, sorry, I should have given you a heads up on this, but I wrote, I don't think I've met someone who actively hates the Minnesota Wild so much. It's one thing to not like them because you're a fan of a different team, but the energy you put into hating them doesn't make sense. Billy G is going to stuff you in a locker. So the reason that I wrote this is, if you go back and you remember the story we told when we had the assistant general manager of Minnesota on here, Johnny and I were in Vegas together, and we ran into Billy Guerin and Chris Kelleher, and they gave Johnny shit for his tweet about the Minnesota Wild, calling
them a radio show. I called them Minnesota on a radio show.
The Minnesota Wild. And so they gave Johnny a hard time. Obviously, Chris Kelleher, the assistant general manager of the Wild, comes on our show. We're all friends. I sent that tweet out just to get a rise out of Chris Kelleher. Naturally, I did. I got a message about it from him.
He texted you?
Yeah, of course he did.
He texted me and called me a homer.
Yeah, and so the people responding to my tweet, the tweet picked up a lot of steam, and people, only 3 replies knew I was kidding. Yeah. Everybody else was like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like even Minnesota Wild fans were like, it shouldn't have been a penalty. Why are you saying this? People were, I couldn't believe. Stan Fischler replied, incoherently, I may
I don't
add.
understand what
I
he
have
said.
no idea what Stan Fischler is talking about on this, but like Ranger fans that I do see you interact with were like basically like telling me what an idiot I am for saying that. And luckily there were a few people that caught the sarcasm there, but the replies to this tweet were pretty unhinged. One guy was like, "This is why you only played 3 games in the league." I'm like, "Oh my God, like seriously? Like you think that I'm kidding? I mean, you think that I'm serious?" So when you said social media, that was that was pretty funny. Like I mean, Johnny doesn't hate anything in
Well,
the
it's funny
world.
too that I also like someone like kind of went at you, and I was like, "Thanks for defending me." On Twitter.
Yeah, oh, you were digging into it for sure.
Yeah,
And New York Marine, if you would have piled on, I would have known you were being sarcastic and just piling on. Like that would have been pretty obvious to me. There was a lot of really, really funny responses to that of people, in their feelings, because that was the worst call I've ever seen by a ref in my entire life.
Ever.
Like the worst one I've ever seen in my entire life. And listen, Rempe's played better lately. Last night he played about 8 minutes. I've always said if you can get the guy on the ice for 8 to 10 minutes as a fourth liner, okay. Like you're not wasting everybody's time. It's when he was getting 3 to 4 minutes, right? When he was that's where you're like, okay, you can't have this guy in the lineup.
They're treating him like a hockey player now. He's not just a sideshow.
Right. Yeah. So I do laugh when you are like, "Oh my God, his hands are so good. His skating is so good."
I've never said his hands are so good.
That is you sensationalizing as normal. But I thought that was outrageous this week. I mean, because the replies kept coming like throughout the weekend. They kept coming. And Johnny, Vic, and I, we were having a lot of really, really good laughs about that, about the replies in our group text, because they were just one was more funny after the next.
Mm-hmm. No, it was good stuff. I did want to read one more thing before we go into Bet365. We were talking about Ottawa before, and I should have mentioned this, or I could have mentioned it on tomorrow's show, honestly, but it's in front of me right now because Vic sent it over. Linus Ullmark right now has the chance to do something that hasn't been done since 1970. So a cool stat here. He's won his last 5 starts against 5 of the 6 original 6 teams. Chicago, the Rangers, Detroit, Boston, and Toronto. They play at Montreal tomorrow, and he could be the first goalie since 1970 to beat all 6 original teams 6 in a row. And Vic said crazy that the schedule would even allow that. But definitely a pretty cool stat for Linus Ullmark that you would never really think of. So credit to Vic for bringing that up this morning. But I do want to go into Bet365, Colby, unless you wanted to say something about that. And I actually wanted to admit something as well. I did bow out of my Devils to make the playoffs bet. I cashed out at $243. So I lost $57. But I took that $243 and I put it on the Tampa Bay Lightning actually to win the Atlantic. Right now, the Lightning are 4 points back of Florida with 2 games in hand. The Lightning have been rolling. Vasilevsky's playing very well. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10. Schedule is a little bit tough toward the end of the season, but if anyone's looking for something toward the last 10-plus games here, Tampa Bay to win the division might be a decent splurge. And then obviously that would mean Florida and Toronto would probably align in the first round unless Ottawa catches them. There's still so many different things that could happen. But tonight's Bet365 bet of the night is going to be the Columbus Blue Jackets, who have been struggling lately. They've only won one of their last 5, but it's a must-win game on home ice. They're home dogs against the New Jersey Devils, who apparently have found Wayne Gretzky and Cody Glass, who's been playing really well since they've gotten him at the deadline. They've won 3 of their last 4. They lost, obviously, on Saturday in Pittsburgh, but Columbus right now has lost 3 games in a row, shut out in back-to-back games. You got to think this is going to be their most desperate effort on home ice tonight, and I kind of like them as a home dog at plus 115. So we're going with the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. We've been betting on them a lot lately. But that's what we're rolling with tonight.
Team of Destiny. Wait, so why did you bail on your Devils? Like what was the impetus for that?
Well, honestly, I kind of just They beat Edmonton, and I was like, you know what? They've won 3 in a row. They're in a pretty decent spot. I'm not quite sure if they're going to drop, and I didn't want to. I saw a chance to take the money at like only losing $57, and I was like, you know what? I'll just reinvest it elsewhere. They have a 6-point lead ahead of the Rangers right now, and I don't know if I trust the Rangers to really catch them. So I don't know. I think the Devils are going to get in.
Okay.
So I bowed out. I bowed out.
I don't know. I thought the juice was worth the squeeze there for what you would have won.
Definitely was. It definitely was.
It seemed like a decent investment. Even I mean, I wouldn't. No, maybe that's not the right choice of words, but I mean,
yeah.
I feel like if the juice is worth the squeeze, it's worth the risk. But the young guys that have been brought up to Jersey to fill some holes on the back end seem to be playing all right. You know, we know there's talent there. We know there's goaltending there. So we'll see what happens. We shall see what happens. So, all right. I think that probably does it for us today, Johnny. Make sure you guys give us a like on the episode. It's pretty light. Our YouTube crowd today was light. Our Twitter crowd was huge. But our YouTube crowd was pretty light. So make sure you guys give us a bump on the way out. And you know, one thing we didn't really get into today, Johnny, that I'll just throw this, you know, out there. BC loses to Northeastern. You know, I know college hockey, probably not for all of you guys. I think some of you are more intrigued by it than others, but the Boston College Eagles. Oh wow, sorry, he didn't do the Bet365 read. Yeah. So we'll let you get to that in a second here, Johnny. But big upsets happening with BC getting knocked out of the Hockey East tournament. They'll still be the number 1 seed. There's still a lot to be settled for the NCAA tournament over the next week. Michigan could end up on the outside looking in if there's any bad upsets. Like Quinnipiac needs to win the ECA tournament, or Michigan's probably out. And same thing goes out with out west. You know, you probably need Denver, or you need Western Michigan to win out there to make sure that you know, North Dakota doesn't upset their way into the tournament, or Arizona State is on the outside looking in. So
how about the crowd ASU got over the weekend? That place looked electric.
Unreal. Yeah. I would love to see ASU get into the tournament. At the expense of Michigan, though, I'm not sure. But we could actually based on interconference stuff, we could potentially see a Michigan BC opening game of the tournament. I don't know. It's probably more likely to be the winner of the Atlantic or Minnesota State from the CCHA. We'll see about that. But there's a lot going. And Jeremiah reminding us that the selection show will be Sunday on probably ESPNU. I don't know yet. I'm doing the show. I don't know what time it is either, unfortunately, but I'll find that out here over the next couple of days. Dylan, I will not be going to Allentown for regionals. I will be in Manchester, where BC will probably most likely be as the number 1 overall seed. They'll get the preferred travel. You're probably looking at Maine as the number 1 seed in Allentown. But it should be interesting this year because Hockey East could get 6 teams in. So that kind of complicates, you know, you can't have inter-conference matchups the opening game of the NCAA tournament. So they put the bracket together and then they have to mess it around to see who can go where. So make sure you like the episode. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Johnny, go ahead and finish off your read for 365. Sorry, I jumped in before you finished that.
Yeah, no, that was actually my fault. I meant to let everyone know that where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner, Bet365. Every face-off is a hat trick, or every face-off hat trick power play. Shot on goal, penalty shot, and every suspenseful minute in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. So download the Bet365 app and use the code NATION, NATION, to get in on the game. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please visit connexontario.ca. Colby, any final thoughts before we wrap today's show up?
I hope that's not a website that you have to visit anytime soon, Johnny.
If the Lightning don't win the division, they might be getting dialed.
Rent might be a little late this month, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I messed that read up. Thanks for calling me out, J-Rock. I appreciate you holding me accountable.
All right.
I have a 10-day trip coming up this week. I'm going to Vegas on Thursday to Sunday for my best friend's bachelor party, and then I'm going to LA for the week after that. So it's going to be a long 10 days, but I won't be missing the show.
Are you working in LA?
The Rangers are going to California that week, so I'm going to go to the games. I'm going to visit my friend Steve Trachtenberg, who's now with San Diego. So I'm going to see some friends that I haven't seen in a couple of years out in LA, but not missing any shows like Vacation Vic. I will be up at 6 a.m. doing the show from the West Coast and making fun of Vic the whole time.
Well, I will say this, the 27th, which is a Thursday of next week, that is a show that we may be rescheduling. We'll talk about that. We did the extra show the week of the Four Nations. So that might be the one that we make back on it, just because that's a travel day for me for the NCAA tournament. So we'll get to that, and we'll let everybody know what's going on. And yeah, listen, we'll try to drag a little college hockey into this here over the next couple of weeks. We'll try to maybe get some college hockey guests on here as well, guys that are prospects that are probably going to play in the NHL here at some point. We'll definitely get to all that. So again, give us a like, hit the subscribe button. DFO live at noon today, which I'll actually be on with Tyler Yaremchuk. And I think you're doing DFO live tomorrow, right? With Nate Thompson.
Wednesday. Doing it Wednesday with Nate.
Wednesday with Nate. Okay, got it. So, and then obviously we've got the sheet every day at 3:00. Make sure you've got those auto downloads on if you're audio only. Even if you're a YouTuber or you're a live show, put the downloads on anyway, right? Help your boys out. I know a lot of you guys travel a lot, and maybe you only catch half an episode, and then you've got the auto download on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you listen to the second half of the show, while you're in the car, while you're en route, and while you're moving around. So we love you guys. We appreciate you. We appreciate all the questions in the chat today. We tried to get some of them into Pat. Pat was great today. Super open, super honest. You got to ask him some of those uncomfortable questions. Johnny, one day you'll feel comfortable enough to do that. Other than that, don't miss our shows the rest of the day. We hope everybody has a great day, and we will see you all right back here at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have a good one, everyone.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.